I was 28 years old when I died for 4 minutes and 17 seconds. I know the exact time because the nurse told me later, her voice shaking, her eyes wet. She wasn't supposed to tell me anything, but she did. And that's when I learned that my father, the man who taught me to ride a bike, who came to every baseball game, who hugged me at my college graduation, had signed a piece of paper that said if my heart stopped, no one should try to bring me back. Not because I was dying of cancer, not because I was brain dead, not because I wanted to die, but because reviving me was expensive. They brought me back anyway. A young doctor named Dr. Sarah Chen ignored the DNR order my father had signed 12 hours earlier. She pressed her hands against my chest and brought me back to life while my father sat in the waiting room checking his phone, probably calculating how much money he'd just lost. I didn't know any of this when I woke up. I just knew I was alive. I also didn't know that 72 hours later, my father would lose everything that ever mattered to him. Not his money, something far worse. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to the beginning. Back to when I still believed my father was a good man. 3 weeks earlier. The headaches started in March. At first, they were just annoying, a dull pressure behind my eyes that I blamed on too much screen time at work. I was a junior architect at Morrison & Fields, spending 60 hours a week designing residential projects, squinting at blueprints and 3D renderings until my vision blurred. "You need to take a break, Daniel," my girlfriend Amy told me one evening. We were having dinner at our favorite Thai place, and I was rubbing my temples for the third time in 20 minutes. "When's the last time you took a day off?" "I'm fine," I said, forcing a smile. "Just stressed about the Riverside project. The client keeps changing their mind about the kitchen layout." Amy reached across the table and squeezed my hand. She had this way of looking at me, concerned but not pushy, caring but not overbearing. We'd been together for 2 years, and I'd been planning to propose soon. I'd even talked to my father about it a month earlier. "She's a good girl, Danny," Dad had said, sitting in his leather armchair in the living room of his house in Riverside Estates, the gated community he'd moved to after Mom died 3 years ago. "Stable job, good family. Don't wait too long, son. Good women don't stay single forever." I laughed. "Thanks for the pressure, Dad." "I'm serious, Danny." He used my childhood nickname, which he only did when he was being sincere. "Your mother and I were married at 25. Best decision I ever made. You're 28 now. Time to start thinking about your future." That conversation felt like a lifetime ago now. The headaches got worse. By the second week of March, I was popping ibuprofen like candy. The pressure behind my eyes had become a constant throb that made it hard to concentrate. I started making mistakes at work, small things at first, like forgetting to save files or missing emails, then bigger things, like miscalculating measurements on a structural drawing. My boss, Richard Morrison, called me into his office on a Friday afternoon. "Daniel, is everything okay?" he asked, his 60-year-old face creased with genuine concern. Richard was a good man, the kind of boss who remembered your birthday and asked about your family. "You seemed off lately." "I'm fine," I lied, forcing a smile. "Just some headaches, probably need new glasses." "When's the last time you saw a doctor?" I tried to remember. Maybe 2 years ago, for a physical?" Richard leaned back in his chair, studying me. "Take Monday off. Go see a doctor. That's not a suggestion. That's an order." I wanted to argue, but the truth was the headaches were scaring me. That morning, I'd had a moment where the room seemed to tilt sideways, and I had to grip my desk to keep from falling. "Okay," I said quietly. "I'll make an appointment." That weekend, the headaches evolved into something worse. I was at my apartment Saturday morning when the first real episode hit. I was making coffee. Suddenly, the kitchen lights seemed too bright, piercing, like staring into the sun. I closed my eyes, but that made it worse. The darkness behind my eyelids pulsed with strange colors, geometric patterns that shouldn't exist. Then came the nausea. I barely made it to the bathroom before I threw up, my body heaving so violently I thought I might crack a rib. When it finally stopped, I slumped against the bathtub, sweating and shaking. Amy found me there 20 minutes later. She had a key to my apartment and had come over to surprise me with breakfast. "Jesus, Daniel, how long have you been like this?" "I don't know, a few minutes, an hour, I can't tell." Her hand was cool against my forehead. "You're burning up. We're going to the ER." "No, I'm fine. I just need—" "Now, Daniel." I didn't have the strength to argue. The ER. St. Mary's Medical Center was busy that Saturday morning. Crying children, elderly people in wheelchairs, a man with a bloody towel wrapped around his hand. We waited for 2 hours before a tired nurse called my name. The ER doctor was a woman in her 40s named Dr. Patricia Wells. She had kind eyes but a no-nonsense manner that reminded me of my high school principal. "Tell me about these headaches," she asked, shining a light in my eyes. I explained everything, the timeline, the intensity, the episode that morning. She listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes on her tablet. "Any family history of migraines?" "Not that I know of." "Vision changes, numbness, tingling?" "The lights seem too bright sometimes, and this morning I saw weird patterns when I closed my eyes." Her expression shifted just slightly, but I caught it, a flicker of concern. "I'm going to order a CT scan," she said, "just to rule some things out." "Rule what out?" Amy asked, her voice tight. "Could be a lot of things, might be nothing, but with neurological symptoms, we don't take chances." The CT scan took 30 minutes. Lying in that huge white machine, listening to it whir and click around my head, I felt fear for the first time. Real fear, the kind that makes your chest tight and your thoughts race. What if it was a tumor? What if it was cancer? What if I was dying? I thought about Amy, about the ring I'd been looking at online, about the life we were supposed to build together. I thought about my father, about how proud he'd been when I got my architecture degree, how he framed my diploma and hung it in his study next to his own business awards. I couldn't be dying. I was 28. I had too much life left to live. When the scan was done, they made me wait in a small room with Amy. She held my hand and didn't say anything, which I appreciated. Some silences are better than words. Dr. Wells came back an hour later. Her face was carefully neutral, professionally calm, but I could see the tension in her shoulders. "Daniel, we found something on the scan," she said, sitting down across from us. "There's a mass in your brain, right temporal lobe, about 3 centimeters. "A mass?" I repeated. "You mean a tumor?" "We can't say for certain with more tests. Could be a tumor, could be a cyst, could be a benign growth. You need to see a neurologist as soon as possible. I'm going to refer you to Dr. Raymond Keller. He's one of the best in the state." Amy made a small sound beside me, like a wounded animal. I squeezed her hand. "What happens if it's cancer?" I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves," Dr. Wells said gently. "First, we need an MRI, probably a biopsy. Then we'll know what we're dealing with. But I want to be straight with you. This is serious. The symptoms you're experiencing, the location of the mass, you need to follow up immediately." She gave me Dr. Keller's information and a prescription for stronger pain medication. Before we left, she put a hand on my shoulder. "Don't Google this," she said. "I mean it. You'll drive yourself crazy. Wait for the MRI results." I nodded, but we both knew I was going to Google it the moment I got home. Telling my father. I called my father that evening. He lived 20 minutes away in Riverside Estates, a community of large houses with perfectly manicured lawns and expensive cars in every driveway. After Mom died, he'd sold our family home, the one I grew up in, with the treehouse he built in the backyard and the kitchen where Mom made pancakes every Sunday, and moved to this sterile, lifeless place. "It's easier," he'd explained when I had questioned the decision. "Too many memories in the old house. I need a fresh start." I understood, even though it hurt. Grief makes people do strange things. "Danny," he sounded cheerful when he answered. "How's my boy?" "Hey, Dad, are you busy? I need to talk to you about something." "For you? Never too busy. What's going on?" I took a breath. "I went to the ER today. They found something on a CT scan, a mass in my brain." Silence. Then, "What kind of mass?" "They don't know yet. Could be a tumor, could be a cyst. I have to see a neurologist for more tests." More silence. I could hear him breathing. "Dad? I'm here." His voice had changed, flattened. "What did they say about treatment?" "They didn't. They want to do an MRI first, then maybe a biopsy." "How much is all this going to cost?" The question came out before I could stop it.
Before the diagnosis, 6 months earlier. To understand what my father did, you need to understand who we were before the cancer. You need to see the relationship we had, the trust I placed in him, the years of love and memories that made his betrayal so devastating. Let me take you back to September, 6 months before the headache started, 6 months before everything fell apart. Labor Day weekend. "Danny, you're late!" My father stood on his back deck, apron tied around his waist, Tums in hand, gesturing at me with mock irritation. The smell of grilling burgers filled the air, mixing with the scent of cut grass and chlorine from his pool. "Traffic," I called back, climbing out of my car with Amy beside me. The highway was a parking lot. "Excuses, excuses." But he was grinning, that wide smile that had always made me feel like I was the most important person in his world. "Amy, sweetheart, you look beautiful. Tell me you brought that potato salad you made last time." "I did," Amy said, holding up a covered dish. "Double batch." "That's why you're my favorite." Dad winked at her, then pulled me into a one-armed hug, careful not to drop the tongs. "Good to see you, son. It's been too long." "I was here 2 weeks ago, Dad." "Like I said, too long." This was our ritual. Every few weeks, usually on a weekend, I'd drive to Riverside Estates for dinner. Sometimes it was just the two of us. Sometimes Amy came. Occasionally, Dad would invite his golf buddies or neighbors, but mostly it was just us, trying to recreate the family dinners we used to have when Mom was alive. The house was beautiful, 4,000 square feet of modern architecture with floor-to-ceiling windows, a gourmet kitchen, and a backyard that looked like it belonged in a magazine. But it wasn't home. Not like our old house had been. "How's work?" Dad asked as he flipped burgers, the meat sizzling perfectly. "Busy, good busy. Richard gave me the lead on a new residential development in Westbrook. 12 townhomes, total creative control." Dad's face lit up. "That's fantastic. See, I told you that architecture degree would pay off. Your mother would be so proud." He said that a lot. Your mother would be so proud. It was his way of keeping her present, of making sure I knew she was still part of our lives even though she was gone. I helped him bring food out to the patio table. Burgers, grilled vegetables, Amy's potato salad, fresh corn on the cob. We ate outside as the sun set, painting the sky orange and pink. "Remember when we used to do this at the old house?" I said, nostalgia hitting me suddenly. Mom would make her famous coleslaw and we'd eat outside even when it was too cold, and she'd make us put on jackets. Dad smiled, but it was tinged with sadness. She loved those dinners, said it was the only time we all sat down together without distractions. "You still miss her." "Every day." He took a sip of his beer. "But it gets easier. The pain dulls. You learn to live with the absence." Amy reached over and squeezed his hand. She'd never met my mother. Mom died a year before Amy and I started dating, but she'd heard enough stories to feel connected to her. "Tell me about the Westbrook project," Dad said, changing the subject. He always did this when talking about Mom became too heavy. "What's your vision?" I launched into an explanation of the townhomes, modern design with traditional elements, maximizing natural light, creating community spaces that encouraged neighbors to interact. Dad listened intently, asking smart questions, offering suggestions from his own experience in real estate. This was what I loved about our relationship. He wasn't just my father, he was my mentor, my friend, someone who genuinely cared about my career and my dreams. After dinner, we sat by the pool with drinks. Amy went inside to call her sister, leaving Dad and me alone. "I'm thinking about proposing," I said suddenly. Dad turned to me, eyebrows raised. "To Amy?" "No, to the mailman. Yes, to Amy." He laughed. Smartass. "When?" "I don't know. Soon. Maybe next month? I've been looking at rings." "You love her." It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. "Yeah, I really do. She's everything, Dad. She's kind and smart, and she makes me want to be better. When I'm with her, I feel like I can do anything." Dad's expression softened. "That's how I felt about your mother, every single day for 33 years. He paused. "Do you have a ring picked out?" "Not yet. I wanted to talk to you first. Get your, I don't know, your blessing? Is that old-fashioned?" "Maybe, but I appreciate it." He clinked his glass against mine. "You have my blessing, son. Amy's a wonderful woman. She'll make you happy. I hope I make her happy too." "You will. Just remember what your mother always said. Marriage is work. It's choosing each other every day, even on the hard days. Especially on the hard days." We sat in comfortable silence, watching the pool lights shimmer in the water. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Are you happy? Here, I mean? In this house? This life? Without Mom?" He considered the question carefully. "Happy? I don't know if that's the right word. Content, maybe. I have my work, my golf, my friends. I have you. That's enough. But you're lonely. Sometimes. But that's life after loss, Danny. You learn to fill the empty spaces however you can." I wanted to push further, to tell him that selling the family home had been a mistake, that this mech mansion in a gated community wasn't him. But I didn't. He was my father. He'd earned the right to grieve and rebuild in whatever way made sense to him. "Thanks for dinner," I said instead. "Anytime, son. You know my door is always open." That night, driving home with Amy asleep in the passenger seat, I felt grateful. Grateful for my father, for Amy, for the life I was building. I felt lucky. I had no idea how quickly luck could run out. October. The ring. I bought the ring on a rainy Tuesday in October. The jeweler was a small shop downtown, the kind of place that had been there for generations. An elderly man named Mr. Rosenberg helped me, showing me diamonds and settings with patient expertise. "What's your budget?" he asked. 5,000, maybe? He smiled. "Let me show you something." The ring he showed me was perfect, a simple platinum band with a 1-carat diamond, classic but elegant. It was Amy in jewelry form. "I'll take it," I said. Mr. Rosenberg sized it, cleaned it, and placed it in a velvet box. "When are you proposing?" "Next month, November. There's this place, the Botanical Gardens, where we had our first kiss. I'm going to take her there." "Mazel tov," he said warmly. "May you have a long and happy life together." I left the shop with the ring in my jacket pocket, feeling like I was walking on air. That evening, I stopped by my father's house unannounced. I wanted to show him the ring, to share this moment with him. He was in his study, working on his laptop. Real estate contracts, probably. Even semi-retired, he couldn't completely let go of the business. "Danny," he looked surprised but pleased. "What brings you by?" I pulled out the ring box. "I bought it." His face broke into a huge smile. He took it, opened it, and whistled low. "Beautiful. She's going to love it." "You think?"
I know. He handed it back carefully. When's the big day? November 15th. I've got the whole thing planned. Dinner at that French place she loves, then a walk through the gardens. I'll propose on the Japanese bridge at sunset. Romantic. Your mother would approve. We talked for another hour about the proposal, about wedding planning, about the future. Dad was genuinely excited, asking questions, offering suggestions, being the supportive father I'd always known. I'm proud of you, Danny, he said as I was leaving. You've built a good life. Good job, good woman, good head on your shoulders. You're doing everything right. Those words meant everything to me. Looking back now, I wonder if he meant them, or if he was already calculating, already seeing me as a potential financial liability rather than his son. But that night, I believed him completely. November, Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving was always hard without Mom. She used to orchestrate the entire day, cooking for days beforehand, setting the table with her grandmother's china, insisting on formal place settings and everyone dressing up. The house would smell like turkey and pie and home. This would be our third Thanksgiving without her. Dad insisted on hosting at his new house. Amy and I arrived early to help with cooking, though cooking mostly meant Dad ordering catered food and us pretending he'd made it. Don't judge me, he said when I caught him transferring store-bought stuffing into a serving dish. Your mother was the cook. I'm just a guy who can grill a burger.
4 minutes and 17 seconds. Death is quieter than you'd think. I don't remember the moment my heart stopped. 1 second I was under anesthesia, dreaming formless dreams in the chemical darkness, and the next, nothing. Just absence, a gap in time that I can't account for. 4 minutes and 17 seconds that vanished from my life. But other people remember. The operating room was controlled chaos when it happened. Dr. Keller had been working for 2 hours and 43 minutes, carefully removing the tumor from my temporal lobe. The surgery was going well, better than expected actually. The tumor was accessible, the margins were clear, and my brain was responding perfectly to the careful excavation of cancerous tissue. Then, my heart stopped. No warning, no gradual decline. One moment my vitals were stable, the next the monitor flatlined with that terrible, continuous tone that means everything has gone wrong. We're losing him, someone said. Dr. Keller's hands froze, tumor forceps still delicately positioned in my exposed brain. What happened? Unknown. Heart rate just dropped to 0. No pulse. Start compressions, Dr. Keller ordered automatically. That's when someone, a nurse, whose name I later learned was Margaret Chen, spoke up. Doctor, there's a DNR on file. The room went silent, except for the flatline tone. What? Dr. Keller's voice was sharp, disbelieving. Do not resuscitate order, signed this morning by his healthcare proxy. We're not supposed to. He's 28 years old, Dr. Keller snapped. Pull up that file, now. Someone brought a tablet over. Dr. Keller scanned the document, her eyes moving rapidly over the text. This can't be right, she muttered. This makes no sense. It's signed by his father, Margaret said. It's legally binding. Dr. Keller looked down at me, my skull open, my brain exposed, my heart silent. Later, she told me what she thought in that moment. This is wrong. Everything about this is wrong. A 28-year-old man, healthy except for the tumor. A surgery that was going perfectly. No terminal diagnosis, no end-stage disease, no reason to have a DNR in place. And yet there it was, signed that very morning. How long? Dr. Keller asked. 35 seconds since cardiac arrest. She made a decision. Start compressions, she ordered. Charge the defibrillator. But the DNR is medically inappropriate and I'm overriding it. This patient is viable. Start compressions, now. Someone began chest compressions while another person prepared the defibrillator. Dr. Keller carefully withdrew her instruments from my brain, protecting the delicate tissue while her team fought to restart my heart. Clear. The shock jolted my body. Nothing. Still flatline. Again. Clear. Another shock. Still nothing. Come on.
Dr. Keller muttered. "Come on, Daniel! Don't you dare die on my table!" One more shock. This time, a blep on the monitor. Then another. Then a rhythm, weak but steady. "We've got him back," someone said, relief evident in their voice. "Vital stabilizing, heart rate 42, 50, 60. Dr. Keller exhaled slowly. Okay, good. Let's finish this surgery." 4 minutes and 17 seconds. That's how long I was dead. And that's how long Dr. Sarah Chen, Margaret's daughter, a first-year resident who'd been observing the surgery, stood outside the operating room wondering if she should have let me stay dead. Because legally, that's what the DNR said to do. But morally, ethically, medically, it was wrong. Dr. Keller knew it. Dr. Chen knew it. Later, they would both risk their careers to make sure I knew it too. Waking up, consciousness returned slowly, like swimming up from the bottom of a deep pool. First came sensation, a tube down my throat, making me gag, the feeling of being restrained, pain, distant and muffled by drugs, but definitely there. Then came sound, beeping machines, soft voices, the hiss of ventilators. Then, finally, vision. Blurry at first, white ceiling tiles, 2 bright lights, shapes that might be people. I tried to speak but couldn't. The tube, right, there was a tube. Daniel, can you hear me?" Amy's voice. Amy was here. I tried to turn my head toward her but couldn't move. "He's waking up. He's responding." That was a different voice, clinical and professional, a nurse maybe. "Daniel, if you can hear me, squeeze my hand." I squeezed, or tried to. My hand felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. "Good, that's good. You're okay. You're in recovery. The surgery went well." The surgery? Right. Brain tumor. Dr. Keller. I'd survived. Relief washed over me, and I let the darkness take me again. 24 hours post-surgery. When I woke up again, the tube was gone. My throat was raw. My head felt like it had been split open, because it had, and every part of my body hurt, but I was alive. Amy was asleep in a chair beside my bed, her hand still holding mine. "Amy," I croaked. Her eyes flew open. "Daniel, oh God, you're awake. You're really awake." She stood up so fast she knocked over the chair, then leaned over the bed rail to kiss her forehead, my cheeks, my lips. "Easy," I managed. "Everything hurts." I'm sorry. I'm just so happy you're okay." She was crying, laughing, a mess of emotions. "The surgery went well. Dr. Keller got the whole tumor. You're going to be okay." "How long had I been out?" "About 24 hours. They kept you sedated overnight to let your brain rest, but you're doing great, better than expected." I tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. The room spun. "Don't move," Amy said, gently pushing me back down. "You need to rest." "Where's my dad?" Something flickered across her face, something I couldn't read. "He was here earlier. He went to get coffee and make some calls. He should be back soon." "He's been here the whole time?" "Most of it. He stayed in the waiting room during surgery, then came up when they moved you to ICU. He's been worried sick." I felt a wave of affection for my father. Of course he'd been worried. Of course he'd stayed. "I want to see him." "I'll text him. But first, let me get the nurse. They wanted to know when you woke up." She pressed the call button, and within minutes a nurse appeared, a kind-faced woman in her 50s named Janet. "Welcome back, Mr. Morrison," she said, checking my vitals. "How are you feeling?" "Like someone opened my skull with a saw." She smiled. "That's accurate. Pain level 1 to 10? 7? Maybe 8? I'll get you something for that. Any nausea? Dizziness? Both? Normal. It'll improve over the next few days." She made notes on a tablet. "Dr. Keller will be by to see you later this morning. She's very pleased with how the surgery went." After she left, I turned back to Amy. "Tell me everything. What happened in surgery? Was there any complications?" Again, that strange flicker across her face. "You should talk to Dr. Keller about the details." But basically, she was able to remove the entire visible tumor. The margins looked clean. "You'll still need radiation and chemo to make sure any microscopic cells are gone, but the surgery was a success." "That's amazing." I felt tears brick my eyes. I was so scared I wouldn't wake up. "I was scared too." She squeezed my hand. "But you did. You're here. You're going to be okay." We sat in silence for a moment, just existing together, grateful. Then the door opened. My father walked in, carrying 2 cups of coffee. When he saw I was awake, his face went pale. "Danny," he said, and his voice was strange. "You're awake." "Hey, Dad." I tried to smile. I made it. He set down the coffee cups with shaking hands. Thank God you're okay." He came to the bedside, but he didn't hug me, didn't touch me, just stood there, looking at me like he'd seen a ghost. "You should sit down," Amy said. "You look pale." "I'm fine," but he sat anyway, heavily, like his legs wouldn't hold him anymore. "Dad, you okay?" "I should be asking you that." He tried to smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. "How do you feel?" "Like hell, but alive. That's what matters." "That's what matters," he repeated quietly. We talked for a few minutes, superficial conversation about the hospital, the room, the food. But something was off. My father was distracted, distant, not quite meeting my eyes. I chalked it up to stress. The man had just watched his son undergo brain surgery. Of course he was shaken. I didn't know the truth yet. I didn't know what he'd done. That revelation would come later. 48 hours post-surgery, Dr. Chen's visit. The first hint that something was wrong came on my second day in recovery. I was alone. Amy had gone home to shower and change, and Dad had left to handle some business calls. I was watching terrible daytime TV and trying not to think about how much my head hurt when there was a soft knock on my door. "Come in," I called. A young woman in a white coat entered. She was Asian, early 30s, with tired eyes and a nervous energy. "Mr. Morrison, I'm Dr. Sarah Chen. I'm one of the residents who assisted with your surgery. Nice to meet you. Thanks for, helping save my life." She didn't smile. "Can I sit down? I need to talk to you about something." The seriousness of her tone made my stomach clench. "Is something wrong? Did they find more tumor? Is the cancer worse than they thought?" "No, nothing like that. The surgery was successful, but," she paused, choosing her words carefully, "there was an incident during your procedure that I think you should know about." "An incident?" She glanced at the door, then pulled a chair close to my bed and sat down. "What I'm about to tell you could get me in serious trouble. I could lose my medical license, but I think you have a right to know." My heart started racing, making the monitors beep faster. "You're scaring me. During surgery, your heart stopped. Cardiac arrest. We don't know why. It just happened. Probably a reaction to the anesthesia or the stress of the procedure." I felt cold. My heart stopped. "For 4 minutes and 17 seconds. Dr. Deller and the team worked to revive you, and obviously they succeeded. But," she took a deep breath, "there was a DNR on file, a do not resuscitate order. It said that if your heart stopped, we weren't supposed to try to bring you back." The words didn't make sense. "That's impossible. I never signed anything like that." "I know. It wasn't you who signed it." She pulled out a folded paper from her coat pocket. "It was your father. This morning before surgery. He signed it as your healthcare proxy." She handed me the paper. I stared at it, my hands trembling. There it was, in black and white, a do not resuscitate order. My name at the top, my father's signature at the bottom, dated that very morning, the morning of my surgery. This has to be a mistake," I said. "Why would he sign this?" "I don't know. That's why I'm here. Dr. Keller violated that order when she revived you. Legally, she could be sued or lose her license, but she said the DNR made no medical sense. You're young, healthy, and the
After Amy left that evening, exhausted, emotionally drained, needing to go home and process everything we discovered, I was alone with my thoughts for the first time since learning the truth. The hospital room was quiet, except for the rhythmic beeping of monitors and the soft hiss of the IV pump. Outside my window, the city glowed with 1,000 lights, people living their normal lives, unaware that in this sterile room, someone's entire world had just shattered. I stared at the ceiling tiles and tried to understand. How does a father do this to his son? How does love turn into calculation? How does "I'd do anything for you" become "your life is worth less than $2 million"? I kept replaying moments from my childhood, searching for clues I'd missed, warning signs, red flags. The time I broke my arm at age 12 falling off my bike, Dad had taken me to the ER, held my hand while they set the bone, stayed with me all night. He'd seemed genuinely concerned, genuinely caring. Or had he just been calculating the insurance deductible? My college graduation, Dad had been so proud, tears in his eyes as I walked across the stage. He'd framed my diploma, hung it in his study next to his own. Or was he just proud of the investment paying off? His son, the architect, who would be financially stable and not a burden. Mom's funeral. Dad had broken down completely, sobbing at the graveside, barely able to stand. I'd held him up, literally, my arm around his shoulders as they lowered her casket into the ground. That grief had been real. I knew it had been real. But maybe that's what made this worse. He knew what it felt like to lose someone he loved. He knew the pain, the devastation, the hole it left in your life. And he'd been willing to inflict that on himself again, to let me die, to lose his son, for money. That thought broke something in me. I started crying. Not quiet tears, not dignified grief. I sobbed.
deep, wrenching sounds that came from somewhere primal, somewhere I didn't know existed. My whole body shook with it. The monitors started beeping frantically as my heart rate spiked and my breathing became ragged. A nurse rushed in. "Mr. Morrison, Daniel, what's wrong? Are you in pain?" I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, couldn't stop crying. She paged someone, a doctor maybe, or a supervisor, and within minutes my room was full of people checking my vitals, asking questions I couldn't answer. "Panic attack," someone said. "Get me 2 milligrams of Ativan." They gave me something through my IV, and slowly, gradually, the sobbing subsided. My breathing evened out. The world came back into focus. But the pain didn't go away. It just settled deeper, burrowing into my chest like a living thing. "Do you want me to call someone?" the nurse asked gently. "Your girlfriend? A family member?" "No family," I said, my voice raw. "There's no family." She looked at me with such sympathy that I almost started crying again. "Try to rest," she said. "The medication will help you sleep." But I didn't want to sleep. I wanted to understand. I wanted answers. I wanted my father to explain how a man who'd taught me to ride a bike, who'd come to every baseball game, who'd held me when I cried after Mom died, how that man could sign a piece of paper saying I wasn't worth saving. The medication pulled me under anyway, and in my dreams, I died over and over again. 4 minutes and 17 seconds. Each time I saw my father standing over my body, calculator in hand. Day 4, the rage. I woke up angry. Not sad, not confused, not hurt. Furious. The kind of anger that makes your hands shake and your jaw clench and your vision narrow to a single point. My father had tried to kill me for money. Actually tried to kill me. And he'd almost succeeded. If Dr. Keller had followed that DNR, I would be dead right now. My body would be in a morgue. Amy would be planning my funeral, and my father would be calling the life insurance company to file a claim. $2 million. Was that my worth? Was that the sum total of my value to him? I threw the plastic water pitcher across the room. It hit the wall and exploded into pieces, water spraying everywhere. A nurse rushed in. "Mr. Morrison, get out." "You can't. Get out!" She retreated, and I heard her in the hallway calling for security or a supervisor or someone to deal with the unstable patient in room 412. I didn't care. Let them sedate me again. Let them strap me down. Let them do whatever they wanted. Nothing they did could hurt worse than what my father had already done. Dr. Keller came instead of security. She closed the door behind her and surveyed the mess, water everywhere, broken plastic, me sitting on the bed shaking with rage. "I heard you had a rough morning," she said calmly. "He tried to kill me," I said. "My own father tried to kill me." "I know. You saved my life. You disobeyed that DNR and saved my life." "I did." "Why?" The question came out desperate, pleading. "Why did you do it? You could lose your license. You could be sued. Why did you save me when my own father wanted me dead?" Dr. Keller pulled up a chair and sat down, ignoring the water on the floor. "Because I'm a doctor," she said simply. "My job is to save lives when they can be saved. You're 28 years old. You had a treatable tumor and a good prognosis. Your heart stopped due to an anesthesia complication, not because you were dying. Bringing you back was the medically appropriate decision. But the DNR was inappropriate. Medically, ethically, and morally inappropriate. I don't know why your father signed it. Maybe he panicked. Maybe he made a terrible decision in a moment of fear. Maybe," she paused, "maybe he's not the man you thought he was." "I trusted him," I whispered. "My whole life I trusted him." "I know, and that betrayal is going to hurt for a long time. Maybe forever. But Daniel, you need to understand something." She leaned forward, her eyes intense. "You survived. You're alive. You have a second chance that most people don't get. What you do with that chance is up to you. I want revenge." I said it plainly, honestly. No point in hiding it. Dr. Keller didn't look shocked. "That's understandable. But be careful. Revenge can consume you. It can become more important than healing, than living, than moving forward. I don't care. You say that now, but you will." She stood up. "You have a long recovery ahead.
Radiation starts in 2 weeks. Chemotherapy after that. You're going to need all your strength just to survive the treatment. Don't waste it on hatred. After she left, I sat in the bass I'd made and thought about her words. She was right about one thing. I had a long recovery ahead. But she was wrong about revenge consuming me. Because I wasn't planning hot, explosive revenge. I wasn't planning to confront my father or hurt him physically or do anything that would land me in jail. I was planning cold, calculated, methodical destruction. And that kind of revenge doesn't consume you. You feed it slowly, carefully, keeping it controlled. Like radiation therapy. Precise doses, targeted exactly where they need to go, designed to kill what needs to die while keeping you alive. My father had made a calculation. Now I would make mine. Amy's breaking point. Amy came back that afternoon with fresh clothes and my laptop. She took one look at the room, still damp, broken plastic swept into a corner, and sighed. Rough morning. You could say that. She sat on the edge of my bed and took my hand. I'd been thinking about what we discovered, about the life insurance policy. And we should go to the police. This is attempted murder, Daniel, or at least fraud. He can't get away with this. It's not illegal, I said. I checked. As my healthcare proxy, he had the right to sign a DNR. And taking out life insurance on a family member isn't illegal either, even if the timing is suspicious. But the intent doesn't matter. We can't prove he intended to let me die. His lawyer would argue he was just being cautious, that the DNR was a worst-case scenario provision. We'd have no case. Amy's face crumbled. So he just gets away with it. Legally, yes. That's not fair. No, it's not. We sat in silence for a moment. Then Amy said quietly, I went to see him. My head snapped up. What? Your father. I went to his house this morning before coming here. Amy, I had to. I had to look him in the eye and ask him why. My heart was racing. What did he say? She took a shaky breath. He cried, actually broke down crying. Said he made a terrible mistake. That he was scared. That he never thought they'd actually need the DNR. He said he's been sick with guilt since the surgery. Guilt, I repeated flatly. He feels guilty. He wants to see you, to apologize. No. Daniel, no. I don't want his apology. I don't want his guilt. I don't want anything from him. He's still your father. No, he's not. The words came out cold, final. My father died when he signed that DNR. The man who did that is a stranger. A stranger I'm going to destroy. Amy pulled her hand away. What does that mean? I told her. Not everything. Not the specific plans that were already forming in my mind. But the general idea. I was going to dismantle my father's life systematically. His business, his reputation, his comfort, his peace of mind. Amy listened with growing horror. Daniel, this isn't you. You're not a vengeful person. You're kind and generous and forgiving. I was those things, before my father decided my life was worth $2 million. This will destroy you too. Revenge will eat you alive. Everyone keeps saying that, but I don't care. I care. She was crying now. I love you. I want to marry you and build a life with you, but I can't do that with...
Week 1. Surveillance and Research. Recovery from brain surgery is not dramatic. There's no montage of me getting stronger, no inspirational music playing as I push through the pain. Just days that blur together, marked by headaches and fatigue, and the weird feeling of your skull knitting itself back together. I slept 14 hours a day that first week. When I was awake, I researched. My father's business empire was built on commercial real estate. Over 30 years, he'd accumulated 12 properties, strip malls, office buildings, a small apartment complex. Most were in the greater metropolitan area, places he could drive to, manage personally, keep under his control. I started with the properties themselves. Using my architecture background, I requested public records for each building, permits, inspections, zoning compliance, tax assessments, all public information, completely legal. What I found was interesting. 3 of the properties had code violations that had been filed but never resolved. Minor things, parking lot striping that didn't meet current ADA standards, fire escape maintenance issues, outdated electrical panels in common areas. Nothing catastrophic, but violations nonetheless.
Violations that, if someone filed a formal complaint with the city, would require expensive remediation. I made notes. I also looked into his tenants, every business renting space for my father, every lease agreement, also public record in most cases, filed with the county. Several tenants were behind on rent. I could see the court filings, eviction proceedings he'd started, then dropped when they caught up on payments, a pattern of financial stress. More notes. Then I examined his personal finances. This was harder, but not impossible. My father had always been open with me about his investments. Learning opportunity, he'd called it, showing me his portfolio, explaining his strategies. That openness would destroy him. I knew he had investment accounts with Merrill Lynch. I knew his advisor's name, Gordon Chen, a man he'd worked with for 15 years. I even knew approximately how much he had invested, roughly $800,000 in a mix of stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. I also knew he was leveraged. He'd taken out loans against some properties to buy others, betting on appreciation. A common strategy, but risky if property values dropped or if rental income decreased. His debt-to-asset ratio was higher than it should be. Not dangerously high, but high enough that a few strategic pressures could make things uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable. I created a spreadsheet: assets, liabilities, cash flow, risk factors. My father's entire financial life mapped out in columns and rows. Beautiful. Vulnerable. Waiting to be dismantled. Week 2. The first radiation treatment. Radiation therapy starts with a mask. They make a custom mesh mask that fits your face exactly, then bolt it to the table so you can't move during treatment. You lie there, immobilized, while a massive machine rotates around your head, firing invisible beams at your brain. It doesn't hurt during the treatment. The damage comes later. I met with my radiation oncologist, Dr. Patricia Okonkwo, before the first session. 6 weeks, 5 days a week, she explained. Each session is about 15 minutes. The radiation targets any remaining cancer cells we couldn't remove surgically. Side effects: fatigue, hair loss around the treatment area, though you've already lost that from surgery. Possible headaches, though you're already on medication for those. Some patients experience cognitive changes, memory issues, difficulty concentrating, usually temporary. Usually? In about 20% of cases, some cognitive effects are permanent, but you're young, your brain is resilient. I'm optimistic. I started treatment the next day. The mask was claustrophobic. Lying there, unable to move, feeling the machine whir around me, it gave me too much time to think. About my father, about what he'd done, about what I was planning. After the first treatment, I went home and slept for 4 hours. When I woke up, I had 3 missed calls from my father. I deleted the voicemails without listening. Then I got back to work. Week 3. Finding the enemies. Every successful person has enemies, people they've screwed over, competitors they've beaten, former friends who felt betrayed. My father was no exception. I started with former business partners. Through property records and old news articles, I found 3 men who'd partnered with my father on various real estate deals over the years, then parted ways. One was named Marcus Williams. He and my father had bought an office building together in 2008, right before the financial crisis. When property values crashed, they'd had a falling out over how to handle the debt. Eventually, they'd sold at a huge loss. I found Marcus on LinkedIn. He ran a small property management company now, still in the business but clearly not thriving. I sent him a message. Mr. Williams, my name is Daniel Morrison. You may not remember me, but you worked with my father, James Morrison, about 15 years ago. I'm doing some research on commercial real estate investment strategies for a project, and I was hoping to ask you a few questions about your experience. Would you be available for a brief phone call? He responded within an hour. I remember your father, not fondly, but sure, I'll talk to you. Call me tomorrow. We spoke the next afternoon. Your father is a shrewd businessman, Marcus said, his tone making shrewd sound like an insult. Very good at protecting his own interests, not so good at being a fair partner. Can you elaborate? The 2008 crash. We just bought that office building on Riverside, leveraged to the hilt. When the market tanked, I wanted to hold on, wait it out, ride out the storm. Your father wanted to sell immediately, cut our losses. We fought about it for months. Who won? He did. He had the controlling interest. We sold for 60 cents on the dollar, lost over $1 million total. But here's the thing. 6 months later, I found out he'd bought another property at rock bottom prices, used money he'd claimed he didn't have during our partnership. He lied to you about his financial position? Can't prove it, but yeah, I think he held out on me, pushed for the sale so he could free up capital for a better deal, left me holding the bag while he made money off the crash. I took detailed notes. Are you still in contact with him? I asked. Hell no, haven't spoken to him in 10 years. Why are you really calling, Daniel? I paused, calculated my next move. Because my father recently did something that hurt me badly, and I'm trying to understand who he really is, behind the successful businessman facade. Silence on the other end. Then, he hurt you? Yes. Your own son? Yes. Another long pause. I'm sorry to hear that, but I'm not surprised. Your father cares about one thing: money. Everything else, relationships, ethics, loyalty, come second. Thank you for your honesty. If you need anything else, anything that might help you understand what kind of man he is, you call me. I mean that. I thanked him and hung up. One ally acquired. Week 4. Chemotherapy begins.
The chemotherapy drug was called temozolomide, small pills, innocuous looking, poison. I took them every night before bed, then spent the next day feeling like death. Nausea so intense I couldn't eat, fatigue that made walking to the bathroom feel like climbing a mountain, brain fog that made thinking difficult. But I pushed through. Because while my body was being ravished by cancer treatment, my mind was still sharp enough to plan. I found my father's second enemy during a chemo-induced bout of insomnia at 3 a.m. His name was Robert Chen, no relation to Dr. Sarah Chen. He'd been a tenant in one of my father's strip malls, running a small restaurant called Golden Dragon. According to court records, my father had evicted him in 2019 for being 3 months behind on rent. The eviction had forced Robert to close the restaurant, which had been in his family for 20 years. Robert had tried to sue, claiming my father had refused to work with him despite having a history of paying on time. The lawsuit was dismissed. I found Robert working as a manager at a different restaurant across town. I went to visit him during one of my better days between treatments. "I don't know what you want from me," Robert said when I explained who I was. We were sitting in his office, a cramped room that smelled like soy sauce and grease. "I lost everything because of your father, my restaurant, my savings, my family's legacy. I want to know the truth about what happened." "The truth?" He laughed bitterly. "The truth is, I hit some hard times. My wife got sick, medical bills piled up, I fell behind on rent. I went to your father, explained the situation, asked for a payment plan. He said no, said business is business, evicted me the next month. Did you have a lease?" "Year to year. I'd been there for 20 years, never missed a payment until those 3 months. 20 years of being a good tenant, and he threw me out without a second thought." "I'm sorry that happened to you." "Are you?" Robert studied me. "You're his son. Why do you care?" "Because I'm starting to understand that my father values money over people, and I don't like it." Robert nodded slowly. "Your mother was different. She used to come by the restaurant sometimes, eat lunch, chat with my wife. She was kind. When she died, I sent flowers. Your father never acknowledged them." That detail hit me harder than it should have. Mom would have been ashamed of what Dad had become. "If I needed documentation," I said carefully, "about your eviction, about your attempts to work with my father, about the restaurant closing, would you be willing to provide that?" "Why?" "Because I'm building a case. Not a legal case, a moral one. And someday I might need people willing to testify to his character." Robert leaned back in his chair, thinking. "What did he do to you?" he finally asked. I told him. Not everything, but enough. When I finished, Robert's expression had changed from suspicion to sympathy to anger. "He did that to his own son?" "Yes." "For money?" "Yes." Another long pause. "I'm sorry to hear that, but I'm not surprised. Your father cares about one thing, money. Everything else, relationships, ethics, loyalty, come second. Thank you for your honesty. If you need anything else, anything that might help you understand what kind of man he is, you call me. I mean that." I thanked him and hung up. One ally acquired. Week 4. Chemotherapy begins. The chemotherapy drug was called temozolomide, small pills, innocuous looking, poison. I took them every night before bed, then spent the next day feeling like death. Nausea so intense I couldn't eat, fatigue that made walking to the bathroom feel like climbing a mountain, brain fog that made thinking difficult. But I pushed through. Because while my body was being ravaged by cancer treatment, my mind was still sharp enough to plan. I found my father's second enemy during a chemo-induced bout of insomnia at 3 a.m. His name was Robert Chen, no relation to Dr. Sarah Chen. He'd been a tenant in one of my father's strip malls, running a small restaurant called Golden Dragon. According to court records, my father had evicted him in 2019 for being 3 months behind on rent. The eviction had forced Robert to close the restaurant, which had been in his family for 20 years. Robert had tried to sue, claiming my father had refused to work with him despite having a history of paying on time. The lawsuit was dismissed. I found Robert working as a manager at a different restaurant across town. I went to visit him during one of my better days between treatments. "I don't know what you want from me," Robert said when I explained who I was. We were sitting in his office, a cramped room that smelled like soy sauce and grease. "I lost everything because of your father, my restaurant, my savings, my family's legacy. I want to know the truth about what happened." "The truth?" He laughed bitterly. "The truth is, I hit some hard times. My wife got sick, medical bills piled up, I fell behind on rent. I went to your father, explained the situation, asked for a payment plan. He said no, said business is business, evicted me the next month. Did you have a lease?" "Year to year. I'd been there for 20 years, never missed a payment until those 3 months. 20 years of being a good tenant, and he threw me out without a second thought." "I'm sorry that happened to you." "Are you?" Robert studied me. "You're his son? Why do you care?" "Because I'm starting to understand that my father values money over people, and I don't like it." Robert nodded slowly. "Your mother was different. She used to come by the restaurant sometimes, eat lunch, chat with my wife. She was kind. When she died, I sent flowers. Your father never acknowledged them." That detail hit me harder than it should have. Mom would have been ashamed of what Dad had become. "If I needed documentation," I said carefully, "about your eviction, about your attempts to work with my father, about the restaurant closing, would you be willing to provide that?"
September. 72 hours begin. The timeline I'm about to tell you happened over 72 hours. 3 days that changed everything. 3 days where my father's world collapsed so completely, so thoroughly, that by the end,
he was left with nothing but money and regret. But to understand those 72 hours, you need to know what I'd been building toward for the previous 3 months. I'd survived 16 weeks of radiation and chemotherapy. My latest MRI showed no tumor regrowth. Dr. Keller used the word remission carefully, cautiously, but with genuine optimism. I was going to live. And my father was about to learn what that meant. The pieces in place. By early September, I had assembled everything I needed. Financial pressure. The code violations I'd reported had been confirmed. My father faced $150,000 in mandatory repairs across 3 properties within 90 days, or escalating fines. Reputation damage. Marcus Williams had been spreading carefully worded concerns about my father's financial stability through the commercial real estate community. Nothing actionable, nothing libelous. Just questions, doubts. Documentation. Patricia Reeves had compiled a comprehensive file on my father's business practices. Every questionable deal, every burned relationship, every corner he'd cut over 30 years. Witnesses. Robert Chen, Marcus Williams, and 3 other former tenants/partners were willing to speak publicly about my father's character if needed. The DNR, the actual signed document, plus Dr. Sarah Chen's willingness to testify about the medical inappropriateness of it. The life insurance policy. Documentation showing he'd taken out a $2 million policy on me 3 weeks before my diagnosis. The evidence. Everything organized, verified, ready to deploy. All I needed was the right moment. That moment came on a Wednesday in mid-September. My father called me. First time in 4 months. I let it go to voicemail, then listened to the message.
Monday morning, 6 a.m. Detonation. The article published at exactly 6 a.m. I know because I was awake, sitting at my kitchen table with coffee, watching my phone. The headline appeared in the Business Journal's digital edition. Local real estate investor signed DNR for son during brain surgery, citing financial burden. Below it, a subheading. Investigation reveals pattern of prioritizing profit over people in 30-year career. I read the article 3 times. Jennifer Torres had done her job perfectly. Every fact verified, every quote attributed, every piece of documentation referenced. She'd interviewed Dr. Sarah Chen, who confirmed the medical inappropriateness of the DNR. She'd spoken to Marcus Williams and Robert Chen about my father's business practices. She'd included the life insurance policy timeline. She'd laid it all out in clinical, devastating detail. And at the center of the story, the Do Not Resuscitate form with my father's signature and the words, financial burden of extended care. By 7 a.m., the article had been shared 200 times on social media. By 8 a.m., 1,000 shares. By 9 a.m., local TV news was picking it up. By 10 a.m., it had gone regional. My phone started ringing at 6:30 a.m. and didn't stop. Friends I hadn't heard from in months, distant relatives, former colleagues, people offering support, asking if I was okay, wanting to know if the story was true. I turned off my phone and watched the explosion from my laptop. Monday afternoon, the first consequences. The letters I'd mailed arrived Monday afternoon. I know because Patricia Reeves was still watching my father's house. She sent me a text at 2:37 p.m. Your father just received mail, multiple envelopes. He opened them on his front porch, sat down, put his head in his hands, still sitting there. I felt nothing. At 3:15 p.m., Patricia sent a photo. My father's neighbor, a man named Gerald, who'd been his golf buddy for 10 years, walking across the lawn to my father's house, holding one of my letters. The photo showed them talking, Gerald's posture stiff, angry, my father reaching out, trying to explain. Gerald turned and walked away. At 4 p.m., another visitor, then another, people coming to confront him, to ask if it was true, to end friendships. By Monday evening, my father's world had collapsed. The article had spread everywhere. Local news, national news aggregators, social media.
The story was too compelling, too shocking. Father signs death warrant for son to save money. The business community's response was swift and brutal. 3 of his tenants filed lawsuits by end of business Monday, citing the code violations and demanding lease terminations. His bank called the loan immediately, citing reputational risk as justification. The Riverside Community Association held an emergency board meeting to discuss removing him from the neighborhood. They couldn't legally do it, but the intent was clear. He wasn't welcome. His church pastor left a voicemail saying they needed to discuss his continued involvement in the congregation. Everything, all at once, exactly as I'd planned. Monday night, my father's call. At 11:47 Monday night, my father called. I'd turned my phone back on to monitor the situation. I stared at his name on the screen. Something made me answer. Hello? Danny. His voice was destroyed, hoarse from crying, shaking with emotion. Danny, please, please talk to me. I said nothing. Everything is gone. Everything. My business relationships, my friends, my reputation. They're calling me a monster. The TV news called me the father who chose money over his son's life. I don't know how to. He broke down, sobbing. I listened to my father cry and felt absolutely nothing. Please, he begged, tell me how to fix this. Tell me what I need to do. There's nothing you can do, I said quietly. This is what you deserve. I'm your father. You keep saying that, like it means something, like it should make me forgive you. But you stopped being my father when you decided my life had a dollar value. I'm begging you. I'll give you everything, all my money, all my properties, everything I own. Just make this stop. I don't want your money. I never wanted your money. I wanted you to be my father. I wanted you to love me more than you loved your bank account, and you couldn't do that. I do love you, more than anything. No, you love money more than anything. I'm just the son who proved it. What am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to live with this? And there it was, the question I'd been waiting for. The same way I had to live with dying for 4 minutes and 17 seconds because you signed a paper saying I wasn't worth saving. The same way I had to know my own father took out life insurance on me and waited for me to die. You live with it, every day, forever. I can't. Then don't. I hung up, blocked his number, and went to bed. Tuesday morning, the aftermath. Tuesday morning, I woke to 247 missed calls and 583 text messages. Media requests, mostly. Everyone wanted an interview with the son who exposed his father. I ignored them all, except one, a text from Dr. Keller. Daniel, I saw the article. I know this must be incredibly difficult. If you need anything, I'm here. Also, my review was concluded. No disciplinary action. Thank you for your testimony. S.K. I smiled for the first time in days. Dr. Keller was safe. The woman who'd saved my life wouldn't lose her career. That mattered. I also had a voicemail from Richard Morrison, my boss. Daniel, I read the article. I'm so sorry for what you've been through. Take all the time you need. Your job is here when you're ready. And for what it's worth, you did the right thing. Truth matters. And a text from Amy. I saw the article. Are you okay? I'm here if you need to talk. Always. I wasn't okay, but I would be. Eventually. Tuesday afternoon. The final blow. Tuesday afternoon, I received a call from Patricia Reeves. You need to see this, she said. I'm sending you a photo. The photo showed my father's strip mall on Riverside Drive. Someone had spray painted across the front. James Morrison chose money over his son's life. The vandalism happened last night, Patricia said. Police are investigating, but there are no suspects. The property management company is demanding he pay for cleanup. How much? $15,000. Plus, the city has started daily fines for the code violations. $1,000 per day per property. 3 properties equals $3,000 daily. How long can he sustain that? At his current cash burn rate, maybe 3 weeks. Then he'll have to start selling properties at a loss to cover operating costs. The financial death spiral I'd engineered was working perfectly. There's something else, Patricia said. His lawyer quit, sent a letter terminating their relationship. No explanation, but it's obvious. No attorney wants to be associated with him now. What about the loan? The bank wants full payment by Friday, or they start foreclosure proceedings on his most valuable property. Can he pay it? Not without selling something, but nobody wants to buy from him right now. The publicity has made him toxic. I felt a flicker of something. Not satisfaction, not pleasure, just completion. The plan had worked. My father was losing everything. Not his money, not yet, but everything that made the money worth having. Thank you, Patricia. Send me your final invoice. Are you done? Do you want me to keep watching him? I thought about it. No, I'm done. Whatever happens next, he's on his own. After we hung up, I sat in my apartment and realized something. I'd won. My father had been exposed, his reputation destroyed, his relationships ended, his business crumbling. I'd gotten everything I wanted. So why did I feel so empty? 6 months later, beginning again. I stood outside Amy's apartment with flowers and terror. 6 months since the article published. 6 months since my father disappeared. 6 months since I'd gotten my revenge. I'd spent that time in therapy, rebuilding friendships, focusing on work. Richard Morrison had welcomed me back to the firm with open arms, given me the lead on a major project, affordable housing for a nonprofit organization. I'd thrown myself into it, designing homes for people who needed them, creating spaces that valued humanity over profit. It felt right. I'd also spent time at the Barbara Morrison Memorial Plaza, watching the businesses thrive. Robert's nephew's restaurant was packed every weekend. Susan's accounting firm was growing. The tenants I'd helped were succeeding. It wasn't my father's empire. It was better, because it was built on helping people instead of exploiting them. But there was still one piece missing: Amy. I knocked on her door. She answered, saw me, and her hand flew to her mouth. "Daniel." "Hi." "You're here." "I'm here. Can I come in?" We sat on her couch, the same couch where I'd pushed her away 6 months ago. "You look good, healthy. The hair grew back." I ran a hand over my head, now covered in short, dark hair. "Yeah, no more chemo." "You're in remission?" 6 months cancer-free. Dr. Keller says if I make it to 5 years, I'm probably cured. "Daniel, that's amazing!" She hugged me, then pulled back, uncertain. "Sorry, I didn't mean to—" "It's okay. I wanted to see you, to apologize for everything." "You don't need to apologize." "I do. You were right about revenge. It cost me, almost cost me everything that mattered." "But you got justice. Your father faced consequences." "I did, he did. But you know what? It didn't fix anything. It didn't heal me. It didn't make the cancer go away. It didn't undo what he did. All it did was destroy him, and almost destroy me in the process." Amy took my hand. "But you're here now. You survived. Because of people like you and Dr. Keller and Richard, people who cared about me even when I was too broken to care about myself." "What are you saying, Daniel?" I pulled out the ring, the same ring I'd bought a year ago, the same ring she'd returned when I chose revenge over love. "I'm saying I want to try again, not pick up where we left off. Too much has changed, but start over, build something new, if you'll have me." Amy stared at the ring, tears running down her face. "You're not the same person I was," I continued. I'm harder in some ways, more damaged. I have scars, literally and figuratively. I might have cancer recurrence. I might die young. I might... Stop. Amy put a finger to my lips. You're alive. That's what matters. You're here. You survived. And yes, you're different. But so am I. We both are. That's okay. So is that a yes? It's a let's see where this goes. No pressure, no expectations, just us, trying, together. I slipped the ring back in my pocket. Fair enough. Ask me again in a year, if we make it that far. If you still want to, if I still want to. Ask me then. Deal. We sat there holding hands, two broken people trying to build something whole. It wasn't the fairy tale ending I had imagined a year ago, but it was real, and that was enough. 1 year later, the letter. Exactly 1 year after my father's world collapsed, I received a letter, postmarked from Arizona. His handwriting. I almost threw it away unopened, but something made me read it. Danny, I don't expect you to read this. I don't expect you to care, but I needed to write it anyway. I'm living in Tucson now. Small apartment, simple life. I sold everything else. The money's in safe investments. I'll never touch it. It's blood money. I spend my days volunteering at a free medical clinic, helping people who can't afford health care. It doesn't make up for what I did. Nothing ever will, but it's something. I see you on the news sometimes, the work you're doing with affordable housing, the plaza you named after your mother, the way you're using what I built to help people instead of exploit them. You did what I never could. You chose people over profit. I'm proud of you. I know I don't have the right to be proud, but I am. I'm also sorry. I will be sorry every day for the rest of my life. I made a calculation that almost cost my son. It did cost my son, because even though you're alive, I lost you. That's the price I pay, and I'll pay it forever. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know, I understand now. Money can't buy back trust, can't buy back love, can't buy back the relationship I destroyed. I was so afraid of being poor again that I lost everything that actually mattered. I hope you're happy, son. I hope you're healthy. I hope you're living the life I almost stole from you. And I hope someday, when you think of me, you remember something other than my worst moment. But I'll understand if you can't. Your father, James Morrison. I read the letter twice. Then I did something I didn't expect. I forgave him. Not for his sake, for mine. Because Catherine Williams was right. Revenge had a cost, and I'd paid enough. Holding on to anger, on to hatred, on to the need to make him suffer, it was killing me as surely as the cancer had tried to. I didn't need to forget what he did. I didn't need to let him back into my life, but I needed to stop letting his betrayal define me. I wrote back, Dad, I got your letter. I forgive you. Not because you deserve it, not because what you did is okay, but because I deserve peace. I spent a year destroying you. It worked. You lost everything. Justice was served. But I also almost lost myself in the process. You made a terrible choice. You'll live with that forever, but I don't need to live with it anymore. I'm moving forward, building a life, choosing people over profit every day, living the values Mom taught us both. I don't want a relationship with you. That's gone. But I don't want to hate you anymore either. So this is goodbye, final and permanent. Live your life. Do your volunteer work. Try to make amends. Just do it without me. Daniel. P.S. I'm getting married next month to Amy, the woman I almost lost because of what you did. You're not invited, but I wanted you to know I found happiness despite everything. I'm living, really living. That's my revenge. That's my justice. Being alive, being happy, being everything you tried to prevent me from becoming. I mailed the letter. Then I closed that chapter of my life. The wedding. Amy and I got married on a Saturday in May. Small ceremony, just close friends and family. No father of the groom. Just me, Amy, Dr. Keller, who'd become a friend, Richard Morrison, who walked me down the aisle since I had no father to do it, and 50 people who loved us. We got married at the Botanical Gardens, on the Japanese bridge, where I'd almost proposed, where my father confronted me, where my old life ended and my new one began. The officiant asked if I had anything to say before the vows. I looked at Amy and thought about the journey we'd been on. Cancer, betrayal, revenge, healing, all of it leading to this moment. A year and a half ago, I said, I died for 4 minutes and 17 seconds. My heart stopped during brain surgery. Someone who should have fought to save me chose not to. But someone else, a doctor who barely knew me, chose to fight anyway. She brought me back to life. I looked at Dr. Keller in the front row. She was crying. And then I met all of you again, really met you, as someone who'd been given a second chance at life. And I realized the people who matter aren't the ones connected to you by blood or obligation. They're the ones who choose to save you when they don't have to. I turned back to Amy. You chose me, even when I was broken, even when I was consumed by revenge, even when I pushed you away. You chose me anyway. And you chose life, Amy said, crying. You survived. You're here. That's all that matters. We said our vows, we kissed, and we started our life together. Not the life I'd planned a year and a half ago, but a better one. A life built on truth and choice and resilience. A life that proved you could survive the worst betrayal and still find happiness. A life that mattered more than money, more than revenge, more than anything. Epilogue, 5 years later. I'm writing this 5 years after my brain surgery. 5 years cancer-free. Officially cured. I'm 33 years old, married, successful, happy. Amy and I have a daughter. We named her Barbara after my mother. She's 2 years old. She has Amy's eyes and my stubborn streak. She'll never meet her grandfather. Someday, when she's old enough, I'll tell her the story about the man who chose money over his son's life.